Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Daybreak Star Radio. Today, we are going to be interviewing Kainalu. It's really excited to be doing this. I'm Marcus. I'm a citizen of the Cherokee Nation and the host of Indigenous Jazz. I'm just really excited to be interviewing Kainalu today, and really excited to just be able to talk about the music and just always a lot of good questions. So the first question that I wanted to ask is, what inspired you to play music?
Um, well, my parents were both musicians, so I kind of grew up around a lot of instruments. They weren't career musicians per se, but we definitely had like guitars and pianos and so like elementary keyboards sitting around. So from that, I just kind of naturally gravitated towards um, picking up what was around the house. And then in high school, it kind of really took off, and I got much more into production and writing my own songs, and then went to college for music, and since then it's just been doing that.
That's awesome. So, what was your musical education like, and how did that influence you as an artist? Because I know as in, people, I know you come from Japanese and Hawaiian descent, and a lot of the times culture really informs how we actually play, and that kind of counts as a musical education. Did any of those musics culturally influence the ideas that you have, or influence the kind of music you've made in recent years?
Definitely. My formal music education is more in like Western class music college anyway, and so I got more of like a traditional music education, but culturally, I'd say um, I'm very influenced by like sort of the Eastern musical scales, and I try to incorporate them into more modern psychedelia. For instance, like starting on four chords, if you want to get into theory and stuff, is a much more like Japanese style of writing classical music, and it's fun to experiment with those sorts of alternate modes in uh, more like Western popular music.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm in music school right now, so I totally know
Oh,
how.
nice.
Yeah, so it's very different, going back to the Cherokee Nation, hearing the music over there, and then going to like music school, you learn about parallel fifths and all that, just all those kind of rules like that. Very cool. One thing I was noticing is on your latest album, I can hear a lot of old school house and kind of disco influences. Like, what was the process like in creating your latest album?
Yeah, I grew up listening to a lot of like Motown and disco. Um, Funny enough, like Stevie Wonder and Earth, Wind and Fire. So I really like trying to incorporate the way that they would make their rhythm sections, just like through the recording process and through like the feel of the way the bass and the drums interact with old school house, like specifically French house. And um, yeah, I just kind of find myself trying to the best of my abilities, combine sort of like three genres, like psychedelic rock, and then Motown drumming, and then more like house oriented production.
Hmm. Of the Motown records, like what was the most influential one, or the one that you really liked?
Um, Man, that's a really good question. I think it's "What's Going On" by Marvin Gaye is probably my favorite Motown record, just because it was kind of Marvin Gaye's first dip into being the producer of his own record, and having complete creative control of what he was writing. And you can really tell that he poured like everything he was capable of pouring into that record. And the way that the rhythm section plays throughout that record is just, it's been unmatched in time, I think. So I spent a lot of time just listening and analyzing that sort of like feel and lock.
Mm. So actually, I do have an interesting question. So, as an artist, if you had to pick three albums that really shaped your musical identity and how you interpret music, what are the three most influential albums to you in your development as a musician?
Um, okay, awesome question. Definitely "What's Going On" is probably like the early formation. And then for sure, Underneath the Pine by Toro y Moi is one of my all-time favorite records. That kind of just Chaz's approach to music production and writing is really inspiring, and it kind of like opened up the doors to the possibility of trying to make your own music and produce it from start from to finish. And then more recently, I've been on a Radiohead kick, so I think In Rainbows by Radiohead is that's definitely my favorite album. I last year I was in Radiohead's top like 0.0001% of listeners or something. I streamed In Rainbows like consistently through the whole year.
It's a great album, and and that one is really great, and I don't think it gets as much attention as it should compared to OK Computer, which is so yeah. In Rainbows, I like that one too. Very hip.
Yeah, and it's like it was one of the first like completely pay what you want records ever released, and it's like a huge statement because they spent 6 year or 6 albums on EMI, and then they released In Rainbows completely for free. It's their seventh studio record. It's probably one of their best records, and they ended up like releasing the stats of or like the finances behind the album and releasing it for free independently ended up like making more money than a lot of their
Mm,
the music industry paradigm when they did that. So not only is it an amazing record, but it's also this gigantic critique of like how the music industry was being run in the mid 2000s.
absolutely. One of the things I wonder about is so like the production quality on your music is just amazing, and one thing I was wondering is like did you have an important mentor growing up that really helped you to kind of get the production levels that you were doing and like learning how to make the kind of music you wanted to? Was there a mentor in your life, or did you just completely learn it all on your own and just through trial and error?
I definitely had the it's been a lot of trial and error for sure. I've spent like thousands of hours just banging my fists against the desk trying to get things to sound like other things. But I was lucky enough to have a piano growing up who introduced me to synthesizers at a pretty young age. So like understanding waveforms and how they fit together. Um, we didn't go like into like a scientific level or anything, but just having that introduced to me young, I'm very grateful for. And then more recently, I worked with a really good friend of mine, Adam Tyne, who's like a producer himself, and he and I mixed this record together. And he's been a huge influence on and mentor figure just from like a musical standpoint. He's really gifted and knows his way around.
Mm. Another question too is if you had to collaborate with any artist of your choice, who would you want to collaborate with?
I'm sorry, I missed that question. Can you say it again?
No
It
worries.
glitched out.
If you could collaborate with any artist, who would you want to collaborate with?
I think you're asking collaboration. Is that the
Okay.
question?
Oh yeah, I was asking if you could collaborate with any artist right now, who would you want to collaborate with?
Okay, got it. My dream would be Ruben from UMO. I think he's definitely like my favorite artist right now. But honestly, um, there's a guy, Lionel Williams, and his artist name is Vinyl Williams, and I love his music. And I would love to make a track with him.
Mm. So some of the other question I have too is just what is advice you would give to younger Indigenous artists for people who are starting out, people who are trying to make a name for themselves? If you could go back and tell your younger self some advice when you were starting out, what would you recommend?
Um, I think it's that it's not as big of a mountain as you think to start writing and producing your own sounds. Like you don't need thousands of dollars of equipment and gear to get started. And just making things that you want to make. You can draw from your own culture, you can draw from your influences, but just your brain is unique in the world. And just by putting things together, you're going to make something unique and hire out people. The beauty of technology now is that you can just do it in your house.
Absolutely. I mean, with all the technology of like Logic Pro and like Pro Tools and all the fancy stuff. You don't have to pay for boxes or anything like that. Absolutely. So, are there any Seattle shows we should be prepared for? Are you going to be in Seattle or in the Pacific Northwest anytime soon?
Yeah, we're going to be playing Barboza at the end of the month here. It's our first Seattle play, so I'm pretty pumped up.
It's a great venue, Barboza. You can't go wrong there. Capitol Hill, awesome. So, so now that you have like, got a new record out. Like, what's next? What is the next big project? What's your next vision?
Yeah, I did my first production work for my good friend Munya, and her album will be coming out in the fall. That together, so it's kind of my first like big collaborative project, and I'm really excited to share that. And then for my own band, I've been working on more house-oriented music that I think I'm going to release as an EP. The beauty is there's no record label right now, so I can kind of just put it out whenever or whatever I want. So yeah, I'm thinking there's going to be another EP in the next coming months here as I'm wrapping up these new songs.
It's awesome. So we'll be on Spotify, Bandcamp, at the whole deal. Oh,
Yep, you can get it anywhere.
oh, sweet, awesome. Well, those were the questions that I had to ask. Thank you so much for coming in today and interviewing. And yeah, this is the Daybreak Star Radio Network. Thank you so much all for watching. Thank you so much for coming out today, Kainalu.